Verna Felton, who had done many voices for Disney. She was in numerous films, was the bossy good fairy.
Now, you take care of the cake while I clean the room, dear, and I'll make the dress. Now hurry.
Walt found her voice wonderful, and he used her again and again. She is the fairy godmother in Cinderella. She is one of the haughty elephants that Bill Tytla animated for Dumbo.
Ladies, it's no laughing matter at all.
She is the queen in Alice in Wonderland.
Ah, with their heads!
Now, dear, that isn't a very nice thing to say.
Fauna is Barbara Jo Allen, and she was Vera Vague on the Bob Hope Show. And then Merriweather was Barbara Luddy.
She was the very elegant and refined lady from Lady and the Tramp.
It sounds wonderful.
She had a voice that was very easy to listen to and very expressive.
I think we've had enough of this nonsense.
They were people you liked. So there were three likable people playing the three fairies.
What you look for in a voice for animation is someone who will give the animators some hints as to what the character is doing.
That's the artistry of voice actor, is to make it sound as though these characters are breathing and alive.
I felt that what we were trying to do as artists with pencils, we were trying to measure up to some standard that had already been set by the voices.
Sleeping Beauty has made such a difference in my life. I have met so many marvelous people, animators, directors, producers, and being Sleeping Beauty, I am treated so royally. It's been a once-upon-a-dream experience.
And now to make a lovely dress fit to grace a fair princess.
Oh, you darlings, this is the happiest day of my life.
Maleficent doesn't know anything about love or kindness.
I'd like to turn her into a fat old hop toad.
Well, in that event, I'd best be on my way.
Stand back, you fools!
Walt Disney wanted this film to stand out from his other films, and Walt's wanting this classical score behind the whole film set it apart.
Our inspiration for Sleeping Beauty was this wonderful score written more than 75 years ago by Peter Tchaikovsky for his ballet version of the fairy tale.
When you see Sleeping Beauty, you hear Tchaikovsky. When I hear Tchaikovsky's ballet music, now I see Disney's Sleeping Beauty. It's almost impossible now to separate the imagery of Sleeping Beauty from the music of Tchaikovsky. It's almost as though they were meant to be seen and heard together. They live together in a way that I think obliterates the ballet form.
I think it was the elegant and stately style of Ivan Durrell's drawings that pushed the studio away from a traditional Disney song score and to the more elegant and stately ballet by Tchaikovsky. Originally, they had a Sammy Fain score all written out for this film.
They tried some songs. There was one about today is going to be a holiday for gentlemen and scalawags and so forth.
Sammy Fain and Jack Lawrence had written a song called I Happen to Have a Picture.
Now it happens I have a picture.
Where proud fathers in today's world would pull out their wallets and unfold a bunch of photos of their babies. King Hubert and King Stephen, of course, bring out paintings or a painting in progress.
I suspect Walt realized pretty early on that kind of Broadway pop tune sentiment wouldn't fit into that world. That if you're creating this kind of stylized beauty, that it has to flow into all the other areas of the production.
And at the end, only one of those songs from the Sammy Fain score survived, and that was Once Upon a Dream.
I know you, I want with you once upon a dream.
Sleeping Beauty is, of course, one of the great storybook ballets, one of the great classical ballets, and animation, like ballet, is a form of choreographed motion. Everything is planned, its rhythms are worked out and discussed, just as fine dance is.
I think the choice was perfect. There wasn't anything that Walt could think of that he couldn't find in that score. George Bruns did a remarkable adaptation of the music for the film.
George was an in-house composer, a great guy who could do anything.
It's a very pretty score that George Bruns could then take and experiment with, recut, riff on the melodies the way the artists were laying off Gothic art.
I think with the Tchaikovsky music, I remember that we would listen to that, you know, da-dum-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. We would listen to that to get you the feeling of what you were trying to do with your drawings. It was magnificent music.
It's as though Tchaikovsky had been invited to write the music for this film and had just created a Disney score.
Not bad, you know. Is he still available?
It had a new stereo sound system in the film.
They went to a state-of-the-art facility in Germany to record in stereo the score for Sleeping Beauty.
Walt was determined to make Sleeping Beauty a different kind of animated film. He instructed his crews to develop new methods of telling the story, of photographing it, using the music properly. So it resulted in a number of innovations.
Walt said, there's a new process called Technorama, and it's a 70mm frame, not running this way, but running horizontally. And I can put Sleeping Beauty on that and widen it out, and it'll be the most breathtaking way I've ever seen animation on the screen.
So what it did for us, you know, down in the trenches, it meant that we had to work on very large sheets of paper, and they were just awkward to work with because an animation artist has to flip the drawings back and forth, roll the pages to see the action. And when you've got a paper the size of a bed sheet and you're trying to work on these little characters on these gigantic sheets of paper, that became a minor problem for us. But that's the format that they wanted to go with.
Because of that, the staging of many of the shots had to become very much like a pageant. I mean, it's one beautiful sequence after another beautiful sequence after another beautiful sequence.
They really used the screen to advantage. There's a wonderful scene where Maleficent's up in the castle and she's over to the left side of the screen and she shoots her lightning bolts straight across the screen. You follow the action. It's quite dynamically laid out and staged. The special effects are interesting and wonderful. They almost look, some of them, like computer effects. But of course this was, before that, this was all handmade animation. Probably some of the highest quality type of traditional hand-drawn animation ever made.
I remember reading something at a film festival here in Los Angeles in which they listed the battle with Maleficent as the dragon as probably the greatest achievement graphically on 70mm film that had ever been done to that point and probably would ever be done in the future.
The Forest of Thorns itself is a pretty spectacular effect of these gargantuan plants with enormous 3-foot-long spikes growing from their stems.
Disney had its own effects department, and again, some of the best effects animators in the business.
Just like everything else in Sleeping Beauty, the effects have a design aesthetic as well. The vertical elements, the twists and the curls and so on, how can we use those and influence the effects department?
In Sleeping Beauty, every element is so polished and so refined and just reached a point of perfection that no one else could approach.
Each of the Disney films, I think, has its own particular reason for why it's well remembered. Most of them are character-driven and have warm, comical characters that come to the foreground. Many of them have great songs that live for all time. And you kind of look at Sleeping Beauty in a little bit different way. And it's probably in the perfection that literally is obvious in every aspect of the film.
And this goes not only for the animators and designers themselves, but for, say, ink and paint artists.
Well, since Mickey Mouse began, of course, cells have been transferred from the original drawings by the animators onto a clear celluloid. And first, the ink is drawn on the front side of the picture. That dries, and then it's turned over and painted on the back.
That's an amazing amount of work. There was such an incredible level of skill in taking these solid drawings and then cleaning them up to a solid line and then inking them. That's 3 steps away from the original drawing. It was a very difficult thing to do.
It was necessary to go through a great deal of cleanup on the drawings. They had to be cleaned up impeccably, down to almost an architect's line.
It's interesting to see the actual paper drawings because you can also see all the erasures and all the details in them where someone, thank heaven, was human enough to make mistakes which they then corrected.